Hey guys, gals, Derpy-Shady Playskin here, and I'm back with another video at you through the power of the internet. What? Anyways, I just recently got a comment. I forget who the guy is, but he's like, "What happened to the console peasant we used to know and love?" Well, I'm sorry, but see that thing down there? Yeah, that's my sleeper rig. Granted, it's an R7 250, but hey, this thing can pump pretty good performance at 720p on GTA 5. And I think in total, all the parts only ended up being about like 160, maybe $200 at that. And, you know, granted, two of the parts I was gifted by Gamers Over 30, the motherboard and the CPU cooler. And then the other two bits, or actually other three, I bought myself, which were the power supply, the RAM, and the processor, which is an AMD A8 7600 Kaveri, running at 3.6 or 3.8 gigahertz, max speed all the time, running at about, I think like I got it down to 45 Celsius right now. I know, weird, I'm American saying metric shit, but then again, that's the only measurement my motherboard seems to be telling me on the fucking BIOS, because apparently metrics, because science. But yeah, as you saw in the background there on my screen, I guess what drove me away from the peasantry a little bit was the fact you're having to pay for Xbox Live every fucking year. That's, I mean, yeah, I appreciate the games are gold thing, but, and brought me a lot of games I probably would have never tried. But to be honest, having to pay just for fucking multiplayer, especially this year, it's been going down every few weeks. It's starting to become as bad as PlayStation Network. And I don't see the appeal now of it, of what it once had. I mean, years ago when I was on Xbox Live, it was flawless. I rarely had any issues, if at all, with that network. And especially during the time of the huge PlayStation Network hack in 2011, I was like, fuck it. I got my 360. Still gonna play a shit ton of games. I got my PC. I can still play a shit ton of games online, like Team Fortress 2. So, fuck you all. And so I figured, hey, plus, as you see in the background there, on my screen, yeah, Greenham Gaming. That kind of gave me the proof, because I, alongside a lot of other console peasants, and I'm sure in my peasantry video that got ripped and torn to shreds by Top Hats and Champagne, me attested to, where I said you could never find a decent rig for the price of a college budget. Well, this dude managed to form a perfectly working PC that's able to play Fallout 4, at decent settings and decent frame rates, for $300, and managed to also use an old Dell Optiplex 755 with, just a upgraded graphics card, an R7 250 and a Core 2 quad. And I believe 8 gigs of RAM. And he was able to run GTA 5 at 720p at max 40 frames per second. And it kind of all for $150. And that just gave me the proof right there. It's like, well, fuck. PC gaming is this fucking cheap. I can get in. Someone who lives off Social Security, I can get in on this shit. And lo and behold, I have. Granted, I'm running off an APU with built-in R7 graphics, which is an R7 250 in comparison. But basically running that same machine, just instead of a Intel chip, it's an AMD. And I guess the only other thing I can say is I would, go to bat of, if me, a console peasant, who ended up just randomly making a few random friends within the Top Hats community, can get into PC gaming. For a cheap price and still have a wonderful experience. All the rest of the console peasantry, you can too. And no, you don't have to go out and buy a fucking Alienware. In fact, you'll have so many more platforms and avenues to go off of for your games. You got Steam, you got Origin, you got GOG Galaxy, you got Epic Games. I mean, plus Origin, they do pretty much the same thing. Or EA with their Origin service does the same thing that Xbox does every fucking month. Granted, not to the same extent, but they give you a free game every month for on the house. And a good majority of times it's a really fucking amazing title that, I mean, can be anything from modern to, some classic retro shit. And same thing with GOG on some random occasions. Steam on random occasions has some good free games pop up and freebies. Like, I had on one day, Steam is offering Amnesia Machine for Pigs for free. I picked that up. And then there's also the Humble Bundle, where you can get games for like 15, like a package of games for $15 or less. And that in of itself, I mean, hell, I managed to get Splinter Cell Blacklist, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Rayman Origins, Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, Far Cry 3, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. All 6 of those games for $8.32. All digital. And they work perfectly with my gamepads. And they'll also work perfectly with a mouse and keyboard. You have choices of your controllers. You have so much more options with a PC. You can customize it to your heart's content. Yeah, sure, there may be some bad ports like Batman Arkham Knight, but those are few and far between these days. Most, developers are kind of shit and still put out broken ports, but that's if you're only sticking to the AAA developers and publishers like EA and Activision or Ubisoft or WB, which they seem to have given up on the console, or not the consoles, but they've given up on the PC, despite PC having more sales and more users, more gamers than the consoles. And they get their heads out of their asses. What I'm trying to prove here, someone like me, a former peasant, a reformed one at that, who've just had it with the business practices and bullshit that these console makers have put in front of us, can get into PC gaming for a decent price. You don't have to go full on $1,000 like I showed in my Ultimate Dream rig. Ultimate Dream build. So, you can go that route and spend that much cash as you want, but, you don't have to. You can literally game on something someone on a college budget could afford, I mean, shit, $150. And I got a decent rig here. So, I mean, yes, give me at 720p, what do you fucking do? And all the time on 1080p 60 frames per second, but I could care less. 720p 60 frames per second, that's well enough for me. As long as it runs smooth, I can give a shit less about the graphics, especially if I'm going to play on a CRT that runs at 640 by 480. Peace out.